He is the voice of the Cougars. He is Greg Wrubell, and he joins us now. Hello, Greg.
Hello, guys.
So now, before we get to the greatest success story question, it is not very often, if ever, that you are caught off guard. But last night was not the case.
But I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and I guarantee you will not get 10 for 10. Who approved this?
This is off the script.
Yes, very much off the script.
I was telling you before we went on there, I knew that was coming. So I knew that was planned. You clearly did not, which was the whole point.
Yeah. I was going to break.
What did you think of that? Because that was a great segment.
I thought that was really clever. I was very caught off guard, totally surprised, and very upset I did not get 10 for 10.
Yeah. So the question that you missed.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird question. It was, of course, we've been doing 10 questions with all of our guests all season long, and we had a big glut of them all get 9 for 10. And the question was, how many of your guests did not get 9 for 10 on the 10 questions quiz? And I guessed low. I remember 2 off the top of my head, so I said 2. I should have doubled it. It was 4. That was the one question I got wrong.
But you're in such good company because the majority of people got 9 of 10 the whole season.
I hope to be the one guy that.
Yeah, that's right.
And Dave was so sure I wouldn't get 10 for 10. I wanted to prove him wrong.
I know he was angry. The more questions you got right, he got more frustrated.
That was a good time. It was our regular season. It was our season finale of the road show last night. Good time. Yeah.
So we were asking our question. It's out on Twitter. Who was BYU's greatest success story? How would you answer that question?
Well, first of all, the ones you've put out there, the Steve Young ones, are tough to argue.
Yes.
I was going to do an alternate Fab 5, if you will, and Wrubell was going to be on that list. So we'll put Wrubell on. I guess this is alternate Fab 5, and there was Johnny Miller.
Yes.
Johnny Miller has been a part of the game of golf for decades now. And, of course, a BYU grad and played well at So Johnny Miller, somebody that's been in the golf consciousness for 40, 50 years. Right. So I'll go with Wrubell, throw Johnny Miller. Kyle Collinsworth, because, and again, his story is yet to be totally written, but from where he was, a torn ACL, to get to where he is now on an NBA roster, what a great success story, kind of in and of itself. So I'll throw him in there as an alternate Fab 5 guy. Jimmer Fredette. Jimmer Fredette, considering upstate New York, unknown, didn't start a game as a freshman, to a National Player of the Year, top 10 NBA draft pick, still getting paid, and now kind of a global icon in China. You could argue that more people know who Jimmer is now than they did when he was National Player of the Year because he's playing in the most populous country in the world,
and
he's famous
something.
there.
Yeah. That's famous there.
Yeah. And Jeffrey R. Holland. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
My former BYU president, Jeffrey R. Holland. There's my alternate Fab 5 for you.
Nice.
So with the regular season complete, Vegas this week, the tournament starts this week. When you look at BYU's 22-9 record as a whole, how do you view that?
Well, let's keep in mind BYU's picked to finish third in the West Coast Conference behind 2 very good teams, 2 nationally ranked teams, 2 juggernauts, if you will, and that's what they did. And as Dave reminded us last night, BYU's picked to finish third, and then Nick Emery goes out for the year. At that point, there were probably some who thought, well, third's going to be a hard thing to hold on to without one of their best players. They lost Eric Mika. You just don't go out and replace an Eric Mika when he was projected to be part of this year's team. It happened in the offseason, but not at a point where you can just go grab another guy that does what Eric does, especially at BYU. I think other schools are better equipped to go get a quick fix. BYU's not a quick fix type of program. Okay, so they lose Eric Mika unexpectedly, and Dave, they did not expect Eric Mika to not be a part of this team. Okay, then he's gone. They certainly didn't expect Nick Emery to not be a part of this team. So 2 of your best 5 guys, 2 all-conference players off your roster. And so to still win 22 and counting, because they won 22 games last year, they're at 22 and counting right now. Yeah, I think everyone would have loved to have a little more, win a few more games, hang on to the St. Mary's game here at home. But Dave Rose is really pleased with how hard this team fought, how resilient this team was. BYU for a 7th straight year puts 2 guys on the all-conference first team. So, again, yeah, everyone wants more, a little better. But March brings new life, and as Coach said last night, we sting 3 games together, and everyone's going to get what they want.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
So Greg, I've just talking to some former teammates and just some fans around the community. I mean, everybody seems a little bit down right now on the team, and more so just over the last couple of years that, hey, we just can't get over the hump of the 3rd place, and over the last couple of years, and even this year, like you said, I hear you know, a player being gone or somebody being injured. And so my question is, or to them in the conversation was, well, how do we get over this hump? How do we get into, you know, 1 and 2? And if that's, you know, kind of the normal, you know, situation, somebody goes down, is it just a depth type of issue, and we need to get, you know, more, you know, better players?
Well, depth is an issue. When you consider the former BYU players that are still playing for teams around the country, Frank Bartley and Jordan Chapman and Jake Toulson and Isaac Nielsen and on we go. There are a lot of good players playing other places that left for one reason or another. And when you add Eric Mika and Nick Emery to those 4 names, those are 6 names that if they were on this year's team, and they all have eligibility, if those guys were all on this year's team, how good would this year's team be? So again, and Dave's spreadsheet from 3 or 4 years ago looked like that roster this year. Okay, you got about half of it. So the personnel turnover is kind of unprecedented, and it's not all, you know, BYU's doing. These are guys making choices.
Right.
But if Dave had the roster he'd expected to have at this point, how good would this year's team have been? We'll never know. But that said, they still find a way to rebound, stay resilient. This was a 9 scholarship team this year, guys. That's not what you expect to have at BYU, nor anywhere. You want to get old together. Yeah. Okay, the good teams, the great teams get old together. We just played a second straight senior night with no seniors on the floor.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, how often does that happen in any program, let alone a BYU? You've got to get old together. You look at the St. Mary's core and the Gonzaga core, and Gonzaga's more equipped to lose a guy, say, to the NBA draft and go find another good guy immediately than BYU. And that program, again, it's a machine. BYU's playing in a league with Kansas. Okay, Gonzaga is Kansas. What Kansas does in the Big 12, Gonzaga does in the WCC. BYU didn't have a Gonzaga to compete with in the Mountain West Conference or the WAC. There wasn't that team out there. Well, that team is here now, and that's the team you've got to beat. That's a lofty ideal. Again, Mark Few's the winningest coach in college basketball. They've got a 20-year NCAA tournament streak going. They've won 17 of 18 conference championships, 15 of them outright. It is a machine. That's the team you've got to knock off. You can be the second or third best team in the West Coast Conference and be a very good basketball team. Yeah. And no one's content with third place. You want to win this league. But again, look at what you're dealing with. They didn't have to deal with the Kansas of the West Coast Conference in any other league.
Yeah. Well, let's focus in on this week's first game. That would be San Diego on Saturday in Vegas. BYU split, both teams winning at home. The Toreros are coming into the tourney with some drama. What do you make of this matchup with San Diego?
Well, they lost to San Diego just 10, 11 days ago. And I think while you never want to take a loss in that fashion, I really do think it might aid BYU in really having its best game ready to go on Saturday. And again, USD is dealing with clearly a distraction. They're going to have to get that out of their head and get ready to go. But I think the fact that BYU lost that game gives them an extra sharpness that they can rely on this Saturday and fix things that are fixable from that first game. They're 11-5 against San Diego since joining the West Coast Conference, but 4-5 away from the Marriott Centers. They have to play better games away from home than they have played against this team. And they have seen USD twice in the conference tournament before, split. These were years ago now, but split 1-1 in those games. And I think the attention-getting aspect of what happened at Jenny Craig Pavilion might assist BYU this weekend.
I also think that there is a stat that matters that also illustrates how good BYU is when they're favored in the tournament as well.
Right. So BYU in the West, and this is a stat that matters, BYU in the West Coast Conference tournament is 7-1 as the favored seed. 7-1 is the favored seed. Interestingly, in the Mountain West Conference days under Dave Rose, BYU was 8-6 as the favored seed. So a much higher win percentage now in the WCC than the MWC when playing as the favored seed. Yes, BYU was 8-6 as the favored seed in those Denver, Vegas years. 3 of the 6 losses came when playing UNLV on its home floor, we should know.
Right.
BYU was either a 1 playing a 2 or a 2 playing a 3 when Vegas got them 3 times. So 3 of the 6 losses came in one of those home court environments that's really always kind of, chafed me. Yeah. But that said, 8-6 as the favored seed in the Mountain West days, 7-1 as the favored seed in the West Coast Conference days. It's been 5 years since BYU lost a game as the favored seed in Las Vegas.
This is always one of my favorite things, to learn more about your native land. What can you tell us? What is a cool thing about Canada?
We're just going to wrap up the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. The closing ceremonies were this past weekend. And despite the fact that Canada went without a gold medal in men's hockey, without a gold medal in women's hockey, without any medal in men's curling,
which is crazy,
and without any medal in women's curling, which is seriously nuts, because Canada has medaled in every Olympics for the men and the women in curling. They get blanked And yet, Canada set a new Winter Olympics record for total medals gained by the Great White North. 29 medals, breaking the record of 26 set in the homeland of Vancouver back in 2010.
Wow.
There you go. 29 medals for Canada without any help from the curlers.
Brian is actually trying to get a curling team here on campus.
Yeah, I've been doing my biceps, trying to, and I posted it.
Different curling.
Oh, different curling.
Different curling.
Oh,
Yes.
my bad. So I still can't have it?
We'll see.
All right. I want you to be the assistant
Okay.
head coach.
All right.
Yeah.
We can
Brian,
look into
do you know what we're talking about when I say curling?
Yeah, curls for the girls, man.
That like the Winter Olympics
Yeah,
curling?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Yes, I know.
You have seen it. You know what we're talking
I was just
about.
trying to be funny, Greg.
No, you are
Maybe
funny.
Maybe
you
I
are
wasn't-
funny. I was making sure that you really do know what we're talking about.
Greg, thank you so much. We will hear you tonight on Behind the Mic with
Yeah.
Greg Wrubell,
Yeah.
8 p.m. Eastern on BYU Radio.